Gotta be ready for your dog.
Here we go. That. Here we go. The dog gonna be barking and acting stupid. I'm gonna have to smack my dog in her face. Oh, I can't say that live.
No, you cannot.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, you.
My dog is really happy. Yeah, we have a very happy puppy. Man,
but he about to get one.
Yeah, he gonna catch one now. You know what I'm saying? She's actually a girl.
Yeah, there you go.
So, hey, what's up, Facebook familia? What's going on? Welcome to the what's it? December 15th edition. Sunday night of the Bishop and I. That is the Bishop and the I. And tonight we have we are honored to have a dear sister of ours, someone that we have loved for a long time, that is a pillar in our community. She is absolutely for the people, 100%. This woman will advocate for anyone. And so I just wanted to welcome to tonight's discussion our lovely dear sister, the Queen herself, Tasha Williamson. How you doing this evening, ma'am?
Yeah, thank you. I'm doing really, really good. A shout out to everybody. Thank you guys for all the signatures. We made it, and my name will be officially on the ballot. So I want to thank everyone.
That's right. So, hey, let's get to that in just a second here, because that is something I wanted to talk about. That's actually the topic of what we want to talk about tonight, is about politics. And just so people know, like, kind of the concept of the Bishop and I is and has always been about, we talk about national stuff just from our own perspective, right? Because at the end of the day, we kind of all view the world from our own lens and from our own experiences and stuff. And then what we try to do is, okay, like, what are some of the spiritual implications of what we believe, and how do those things play out in the world? But even then, to distill it down even more, is how does it affect us in the Black community as a whole? And then even more, how about here in San Diego? And again, all of this stuff is just our views. It's just how we see it. We could be wrong. That's why we like to have a live discussion, because we try to entertain what other people are saying, what they think, if they disagree. And that's really what this is about. And so the way that we always start this is we talk about our shirts. We try to wear some type of shirt that has some kind of a meaning to it. And so tonight I have on my shirt, "Dear Black girls, you are sacred, you are loved." And that's something that is near and dear to me. I got 2 Black daughters, and I think that Black women are absolutely under attack, not just in the world, but specifically as we see on a regular basis here in America. We're seeing an uptake of Black women being abducted. We've always seen an uptake of Black women being talked about wrong. Something that has really been odd to me, man, is how we have, I remember when I was a kid, if you call somebody the B word, like, you was going to get served. Like, that was just off limits, right? And now just people just saying it and doing whatever. And I think a lot of those things transfer to the Black community, and Black women end up suffering the most behind disrespect towards women. But that's a whole nother topic. But that's what this shirt is about. Yesterday, we showed a documentary called Push Out that spoke about the criminalization of Black girls in school, and how Black girls are way more likely to be kicked out of school, to be punished, to be expelled, to be handled wrong, to be misunderstood, all of these kinds of things. And so it was an incredible documentary. And then we had a panel discussion afterwards that and my sister, Dr. Liz, you know what I'm saying, was up there with her Adidas tracksuit on. She said, "What should I wear?" I said, "Girl, you a doctor. Go in a tracksuit. This is about young kids. They can relate to that." You know what I mean?
Exactly.
All the sisters did well yesterday, man. All them sisters that was up there talking, man. So shout out to my DA, Genevieve Jones Wright.
That's right.
My council member, she hates when I say this, the Queen, you know what I'm saying? Council member for District 4, Monica Montgomery, and Steve Stepp from EWMC, the Electrical Workers Minority Caucus, and Local 569, IBW, Ryan and Brandon Stepp, and all the brothers that helped out to make the thing run. Tanisha Conwright from Fancy, and everybody that helped. It was incredible. It was a really nice, well attended event yesterday. So shout out to D4 and to the Black community for showing up yesterday for Black girls.
We got to make changes.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Bishop.
Hey,
What you
man,
working with?
and what I just want to say about the shirt, I pulled this up to kind of bring it out, is that I saw this on Bishop Talbot Swan's profile.
I thought you was over here asleep.
his
I
tweet.
thought Bishop had fallen asleep. He was over here like this.
You
I
know,
said,
I was
Bishop,
trying to
Bishop
find
is
some
the
stuff.
king of data.
Hey, trust me.
King of
Hey,
data.
I love that.
I just tell
Don't
everybody
bring
else
him
to
to
do
a
it.
meeting and then start pushing data because
Look.
he'll come back.
Look.
Right.
But one of the things that he said was that no matter the field of the endeavor, if Black women are treated fairly, they rise to the top every time.
Period.
And then he has all these pictures of these Black women. One is Miss USA, Kelsey Chris, Miss America, Nia Franklin, Miss Teen USA, Kaylee Garris, Miss Universe, Zazie Zunzi, I think that's African name,
She's African.
and Miss World, the same,
South Africa.
Zoni and Singh are all Black, and they have pictures of all of them, Black women. That's one. So with what you're talking about there, that's for sure. There's pillars of our, as we talk, pillars of the community organization, but Black women are most definitely one of the pillars.
Things that
of
are
the community.
sacred tend to be tried to be removed and,
Mhm.
and distinguished.
Mhm.
And that's what Black women are sacred.
And I think too that we need to stop with the phases that America and the world bring in of when Black can be beautiful.
Right.
Black is beautiful 24/7.
That's right.
Period.
And Black women are beautiful 24/7.
That's right.
So,
That's
and
right.
so we come in all shades and
Mhm.
shapes and colors, and so it's clear we have different hair textures, and all of it is beautiful. And so people need to recognize that,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
beauty that
And-
they
and-
build.
Even though their bodies are beautiful, we don't need to see all that
But their minds
in public.
But,
Yeah, we want to see your
and
mind.
I'm not talking about
Yeah, I
I know
understand.
what you're talking about, but what I'm talking about
Here we go.
is that
He didn't
that
kick the
inner
ball
two.
off.
I get what
Exactly,
you're saying. I
exactly.
get what you're saying. But Bishop, in these days and times, and people, we're gonna have to have another conversation on that because women tend to
Mhm.
see differently
Yeah,
things. Some women are very different, and so I don't want to oppose women
Mhm.
because some of those women have been brought up different and have
Mhm.
gone that way and have
Mhm.
had different traumas and different
Mhm.
things, and then they think that is beautiful.
Can I?
And so that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother topic
No,
that we
but-
got to get into.
But if possible, can I just say this though, because I think it's worth noting, and I think what has happened, and the reason why we see what we consider to be very like outlandish behavior, or however you want to phrase it, is because sometimes that's a result of long-term oppression. And so think about what happens with children who you smother and you never let them do nothing. What happens when they go to college?
Go crazy. Wow.
We think it's going crazy, but it's not. It's a natural reaction to you not ever being able to do anything.
I don't know what to do. I'm in a candy store.
And so what has happened, if we think about, go back to slavery, the first slave, they got a little sister that they called Angela. That's not her name, but Angela, they say, was the first slave in America. So they have a thing called the Angela Project. Check it out.
I heard that before.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you look at look at the trauma that has never been addressed in the Black community in general,
Mhm.
but specifically to Black women,
Mhm.
because watching a Black woman being raped is different than the actual Black woman being raped. You got a trauma from seeing it, but it's internalized. And so when Black women carry babies, that's why I'm a firm believer. I don't think anybody could love a child as much as a mama can. Daddies can love, but I don't think a man can love a child as much as a mama does. There's just something. And so when you look at what has happened in the Black community and all this trauma that's happening around Black kids and Black women, stuff has never really been addressed. And whenever we start, you think about even voting. Up until 1920, no women had a vote in America. No woman had a voice.
Well, but women couldn't dress the way that they dress today back then either. And
we
so
couldn't dress
women-
like that 20 years ago. When I was a kid, you could.
So
it wasn't that.
and it's just a different perspective. People, it's a different era. It's a different, and people don't, so they don't have the understanding that you have, or you have.
Or even the experience.
But it's
or
not
whatever.
to say it's not to say that they're not beautiful.
Of course not.
It's just that there are things that they may not have had that we had, or there are traumas that they may have gone through. There might be things going on, and it might not be. I don't know, and I don't want to. I'm just saying, but that's a whole.
No,
lot
that's a whole.
Because we can get there. Because I mean, I've done it.
Yeah, but here,
So-
look.
So,
Let me. I
just
have.
wanna-
Look, I'm the only boy on my mom's side. I'm the only boy.
Mhm.
Kid rose in the house with 4 girls, right? 4 sisters, no brothers, right? And so I have 2 daughters. Been around women all my life, my mom and my aunts and all whoever community. But when it comes to our models and our examples and what we should be looking to, we have trauma, and there's some trauma that's embedded, ingrained in us, stuff we don't even know, right? But I think that when it comes to what do we look to as an example and as a model if we as a Black people, right? Some things we don't need because they haven't dealt, like you said, with their trauma. They're not ready for leadership. You're not ready to be on a platform. But that is the way the system and the way white supremacy works, is want to degrade Black people by using those who, as you all saying here, oppression and trauma and slavery and all that, put them on pedestals, versus there's a lot of folks that has gotten, I don't want to say past that, but learned how to overcome that. And there are good examples, you know what I mean, that we can use versus picking the worst out of the crop rather than the cream of the crop.
Well, here let's get to the topic that we want to talk about. But I think it's important to say this, because this is a very volatile conversation. And all what I would like to say is for me at the end of the day, is taking it all into account. And I think it is important for us to recognize when we're addressing behaviors and we're not addressing problems. And the problem is trauma that is consistent in the Black community, and it still does today.
Yeah, we got a lot of trauma.
The Black community has been so affected and so left out of everything. And you're talking about, when you look at and I should have kept some of the stats, and maybe I'll bring it up a little bit later on, about the effects of what happens to Black girls in school just growing up. And I remember growing up, you can imagine how much I got, we used to not fights, but get into basing contests about light skin versus dark skin. And, the whole, who looks better, Wesley Snipes or El DeBarge, and it's all that stuff, and we joke about it, but the truth is those are things that have actually really affected our community, that there's been times where if you're really dark skinned, you were an outcast. If you're the darker skinned baby in the family, it's noticed. And I think there's a lot of trauma. So what I want to be careful is that we don't, it's an old saying, blame the victim. I want to make sure that we don't blame the victim. And I think it is a larger discussion that needs to be had with multiple people. So I
don't think that everybody is a victim. I think that some people think that is a fad. That's fine. Those clothes are cute.
That's fine.
And because we all have had eras or generations where there was outfits that everybody liked and wore, and maybe your mama didn't like, or your grandmama didn't like, or grandfather. So those are things that happen. So but that is a whole different conversation.
Because my standards are biblical principles on the Word of God.
But not everybody is looking at the Word of God.
I'm just saying me. So that's why I'm here to let you know.
Of course. No.
I'm with you, but I'm just saying.
I'm God messenger.
But that's real. But here, so part of the show too is to say, okay, no. Part of the overall thing of the bishop and I is really to say, okay, what does it look like when the church shows up in the public square?
Right.
So guess what? Right. You're right. There's going to be times where the opinions, and me and Bishop even disagree on certain things, but there's times when our opinions are going to disagree with whatever the dominant culture says. And guess what? The church is a part of the Black community, and we can't take it out. That was a hiding place for the Black community. And yes, the church has done a lot of damage. You can talk about where's the church been at with all the money that they've collected, and ain't no banks and stores. All of that stuff is true. You know what I mean?
But everything I think in the community has been damaged.
There's no question.
So there's been good and bad, triumphs and successes and failures.
Right. So one of the things that I would love to hear some dialogue about that we all talked about. So it's not just me. We all agreed to talk about the topic. Is I want to get into a little bit of politics, and just let's talk about, for one, you mentioned in the beginning of the show that you got all the signatures that you need.
Thank
Very
you.
important for
I
our
was
community.
shouting.
Very important for our community that Tasha got her name on the ballot. This is the first time, probably in our history, if I'm not mistaken, that a Black woman has. I don't know if any Black women have ever run for mayor before in San Diego, but it'll be the first time that we have a Black mayor that's a female in San Diego. And I think that that's incredible. So
Mhm.
congratulations
Thank
for
you.
doing that. There's a lot
Yeah.
that went into that we won't get into tonight, but there is, I believe, God has like definitely been blessing your efforts.
Yes.
You and I talk every day, and so you know what I mean. So I've seen a lot of the process that you went through, and I want you to know personally. And you know, throughout the years, we'll probably talk to a whole bunch of. The goal is to get to talk to a whole lot of different politicians from different sides of the aisle, right? So without really having to give an opinion of where I stand either way, it's hard for me not to do that because anybody that's known me for 5 minutes know that I love you and you are like my sister. So I want you to know I'm very proud of you and the work that you've had to go through to get your name on the ballot. And one day your story will be told and people will see what has happened during this time. We won't talk about it tonight, but I want you to know I'm proud of you and I think it's amazing that your name is on there. So welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, you know, one of the things that we talked about earlier this week is maybe we could hit two angles because as we were preluding the show here, we were talking about one of the ideas was to talk about the typicalness in the Black vote where you compare, a white candidate to a Black candidate. And does the Black community typically trust the white candidate more just off the bat?
Right.
And then that sort of morphed into a conversation about politics in the Black community with the promises that are made to address certain issues in the Black community that typically don't get addressed when a person comes into office or whatever. So what I like to do is just toss the ball up or whatever, and to continue what we were talking about before we started rolling. And just maybe Bishop, if you could, man, just kind of take over and talk about some of the things that bring up some of the things that you all were talking about, and just to hear from from your perspective and give folks some information about what we was talking about earlier.
Okay, I'd like to read a couple of scriptures first, a few scriptures first.
Yep.
To so you can understand why myself as a pastor
Yes.
is engaged when it comes to dealing with politics.
Why you are engaged?
Why? Yeah.
Perfect.
Why I'm
That's
engaged. Number one, scripture says in Romans 13, 1 and 2, let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established, right? The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authorities is rebelling against what God has instituted. And those who do so will bring judgment on themselves.
Okay.
And so this is a great responsibility that we have and accountability that we have in the sense of what God has established and us submitting to that, right? So if we have to submit to this because God had established it, then that government must be ran or governed the way God wants it to be governed.
Okay.
And so that's why I'm gonna read these other scriptures, 2 Chronicles 9 and 8, talking about Solomon when he became king. It says, and this is Queen Sheba, Black woman, right? Praise be to the Lord your God, who has, she's saying this to Solomon, who has delighted in you and placed you on his throne as king to rule for the Lord your God, because of the love of your God for Israel and desire to uphold them forever. He has made you king over them. And this is the point, right? To maintain justice and righteousness. And that's what rulers, that's what folks are in there for, to maintain justice and righteousness. And the scriptures talks about it is a sin to show favoritism or respect, to have a respect a person. And so to give you an example, when we come up against police and racial profiling and how they treat communities different, we have a right as a messenger, as a servant of God, to call out those sinful practices, because we are God's servants and deliver word to the people to warn them about, hey, you out of line with what God has called for. And if you're instituted by God, we hold you accountable, just like I be held accountable as a pastor. Last one is, this is 2 Chronicles 36, 15 and 16 is about when God came in and got tired of it, right? But look what happened. The Lord, the God of their ancestors, sent word to them, talking about the kings, the rulers, through his messengers again and again, right? Because he had pity on his people and on his dwelling place. But they mocked God's messengers, despised his word, and scoffed at his prophets until the wrath of the Lord was aroused against his people, and there was no remedy. And so God always sends his messengers, they send his prophets, his servants, to go and warn them about a crooked, wicked, and perverse, and unrighteous rulers, right? And we have that obligation, not to just, because even if you come to John the Baptist, he called out the government, right? That governor said, hey, it's not right for you to have your brother's wife, which was actually, incest, because his brother's wife was also a niece of his other brother. So it was incest involved in that also. But it's always so as a governor, and I think we have that responsibility to deal with that. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about and say, and I know some people ain't going to like this and ain't going to agree with it, but as I mentioned earlier, when you look at our city council, our mayor, and we have a mass majority, 6, what you call issues that concern me, like policing, violence in our communities, nothing has been done from the perspective of what can we say that city council has implemented right now that brings a quality of life to the Black community, because that's the issues that we're talking about right here, right now, that they have done, especially when we talk about addressing policing and violence in our community. And you can look at economics too, and the rise and lift up of people. I believe people play with words, make us seem like they're doing something, but they're not. And I just haven't seen anything on that. So you as mayor and running as a Black woman, and you right there with us, and all the you live among the people, right? You eat among us, sleep among us. You're right there. You're not somewhere over here.
Show up for it.
Right, exactly. You're not somewhere way over here, and then like, oh yeah, and take these photos, make it seem like you're with the people, but you really are with the people, and you see what we see. But what is, number one, your opinion on that, in the sense of what we see in the city council? And as a mayor, how will you change that? Because one of the things we talk about, remember, and we understand is because of the work we do, even when you talk about things like, when you look at Stockton, you look at Sacramento, you look at Oakland, you look at places like Richmond, other different places in California, LA, other different places in LA, the city councils and that city is actually supporting, putting resources and funding into programs to address violence, to address the issues that we're dealing with, to raise up the community. But City of San Diego is absent, missing in action.
So the things that I want to say is that what is important to people is what they invest in.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is important to a city council is what is invested in.
Mm-hmm.
What is important to a mayor is what is invested in.
Mm-hmm.
What is important to a board of supervisors is invested in.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we look across the board, Black communities
Mm-hmm.
or communities of color
Mm-hmm.
have not been invested in.
Mm-hmm.
So they are not important.
Mm-hmm.
And that they can prolong doing for us
Mm-hmm.
because we don't sustain the fight.
Mm-hmm.
We do not sustain any fight.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
So we can protest, but are we protesting every day?
Exactly.
Earl McNeil, we literally protested every week.
Mm-hmm.
They lost money from us protesting. There was things that had to be changed because of us protesting,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they had to give in because they could not afford to keep doing overtime. They could not afford to keep having it shut down and not maintaining their business. And so we sustained and were able to get the goals that we set out, which was having the medical examiner's report released and the video released and a conversation with the family. We had all those things happen because we sustained the fight. We were willing to continue to show up every week until we found out what happened to Earl McNeil. And until people are ready to do that, they are not going to change the way transit police interact with them and brutalize them. They are not going to change the way SDPD interacts with them and then shows a 28-page report that answered no questions. They're not going to change that. We should have shut that council meeting, that committee down. We should have, as soon as he got done talking, it should have been shut down because you keep playing us.
The PSLN?
The black,
PSL?
yes,
Okay.
the black community has been played long enough. I said it at the meeting. Nathan Fletcher came to BAPAC and said, there are winners. We got to be serious. We got to be real with each other. There are winners and losers in this game. We can't do everything. And I stood up and said, well, when we going to stop losing?
Right.
When are we going to stop being the losers in this community?
Right.
D4. And it's not until we are ready to sustain some of the things that our elders did and our ancestors did in the fight are some of the things that we're going to need to do. We're going to need to be willing to catch trains and carpool to work and walk.
Oh, shut stuff down.
To shut, you know what? We're not giving MTS another dime until we are treated with dignity and respect across the lines of MTS. Wherever we go and show up, we treated with dignity. We will not put another dollar or dime into your MTS transit, bus, train, whatever, until all our people are treated with dignity and respect. And until we start doing stuff like that, until we come and start showing up like we did, they're going to continue to play us with a 28-page report of nothing. They can shred that report because that had nothing. That there has been no change. We can have people like some of my opponents who are running that are heavily supported by the Police Officers Association, who has dogged every attempt to pass bills by Shirley Weber and other people that would give equity and justice to people of color and Black people, including who have the highest rate of inequities and injustices when it comes to law enforcement. But we have people that are supported and they boast about it. We have somebody who talks about who passed an ordinance for vehicle habitation. Veterans, Black people, Indigenous people, Asian Pacific, every group has had something happen since that ordinance has passed. They have been moved out. Their property has been seized. They've had tickets that they can't afford. All this stuff, and this stuff is happening under our watch.
Right. So let me ask you something though, because you know, a lot of people run on these progressive platforms, and I've seen across the nation. I've been watching and observing it. That's why I got a little frustrated with San Diego City Council, and you want to talk about Carnegie Board Supervisors that too, but they're not. You don't have a majority of progressives on there, or whatever you want to call it. But one of the things that I've seen, and I haven't seen here, is that some folks that run on a progressive platform, as soon as they get in office, they really bring radical change, right? And whether they fail or lose or whatever, they don't play it safe. Whether they get attacked by the police officer union or the city council or politics, whatever, they stay to it. What they're doing, they stick to their guns and they follow through. And they stick with it, right? And they bring change. They bring changes. People don't like it. They try to sue and everything, but they bring change. I haven't seen that here with progressives. And they try to play it safe with everything that they do, right? And one of the things that I see, and I want you to talk about, put yourself like I'm already in the mayor's office, and what you would do to address that. Like we just talking about. So when we're looking at police brutality or way our police racial profiling, the way our community is being policed, and when you look at violence that has risen, and the city council is not doing anything to address that, but having press conference and stuff like that. But that's about it. What would you do as mayor of the city to address those issues?
Yeah. Well, you know, as I've said before, the first thing that will be done is that we are going to fire Chief Nisley. And
that's a good start.
And we are going to start the process of hiring a new chief. But before we do that, we are going to start the process of having a real commission, making sure that this commission has firing, hiring, and authority over discipline, making sure that is separated, that it is not something where you'll have police officers intimidating them or you have police officers swaying them, that this is a separate
Right.
investigatory group,
Right.
almost like OSHA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
OSHA.
when they come in,
Yeah.
or like you know, the folks that come in when planes crash.
Mm-hmm.
FAA.
So when they come in, we want to have something that is totally separate and invested in, heavily invested in,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
the issue around policing is that we don't have anyone that's regulating them.
That's right.
They're regulating themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then we don't know what's going on. So we're going to have to not just have a strong mayor who's going to make change. We're going to have a strong congresswoman or man, a strong senator, a strong assembly.
Yeah.
We're going to have all of that. So when we vote, we can't just singularly think that we're going to vote one. We got to vote all in, because those changes, I'm going to change here. Whoever's in this office is going to need to change here so that it sticks.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that you got to pass a law to change it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you can come in the next mayor and say, oh, we're going to bring this back.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We have to think in those ways.
So what I hear you saying is that it needs to be a systemic change. You can't just make it's like if you just change it at the city level, that's like putting a bucket.
You're gonna leave the city lines and get to the county lines, to the state lines, lines, and it's not gonna change.
Okay. Yeah.
And it all works hand in hand when you talk about that. So
Mm-hmm.
also one of the things that I mentioned is that when you talk about violence in the communities, and I understand there's policies, and there's policy at the city level, county level, and state level and federal. But I know, like with the city, you have authority there if you become mayor. I should say when you become mayor. Let's make it like
yes.
When you become mayor,
I'm claiming
when you become mayor. And you're in the office and you're looking at the violence that is taking place in our community, and it's tied into policing, but it's also tied into community, and it's also tied into the resources that we need. And just for open disclosure, we do that kind of work all the time in the community. We know what's missing, what's lacking in resources and things like that. But as a mayor, looking at cities like Stockton and Richmond and Sacramento and Oakland and other LA, other places that really invest in addressing the violence, whether it's group violence, individual violence, so on, in communities, community violence, really are doing something about it. What would you do to address that? Yeah.
So the first thing is to look at data and research, right? And then we start looking at the numbers. So how are people affected? Who is affected?
Right.
How, and what are the solutions to that? How many people that are traumatized by violence are seeking services? How many services are available? How do we change that and making sure, because we're going to have to invest millions into this. We're not going to be able to give $25,000 to this organization and tell you to do something that's worth, $200,000, right? And you give you money just to shut you up. That's what I call it. I'm going to give you $50,000 and then, and then you cool because you don't want to say nothing because you don't want to mess with your little 50,000. We're not talking about anybody.
We talking about black people that take.
That's what I was just thinking. That's what I was thinking.
You got my attention. Wait a minute. Did we? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not talking about so let me say this. Let me say this.
That's a personal thing.
It's not a. But I want to say this because it pits us against each other, right? I'm talking to the systemic people, right? The systems that do this. They know what they're doing. They're not giving you $50,000 to make change. They're giving you $50,000 to shut you up, to make sure you on their side. So you was just bought. And I understand that. I understand that analogy because now you're quiet. You're quiet about this. Now you're moving in a different direction, right? They moved you. They quieted you. It has nothing to do with this person. That's survival. There are organizations that are surviving only because of this. They would not have any other funding if not for these system people.
Who's getting 50,000? I'm gonna holler at them. But
it's people getting 100,000. It's people getting 25,000. They getting, but I'm just saying.
I usually see folks doing it for 3,000.
But it's this money. This money is money to move you in a different direction. It moves you away from seeing any of the injustices
Mhm.
that you saw before.
And you can't speak out now.
And now when you speak out, it's such a big, it's such a large amount to us
Mhm.
that it's like, oh, you know, I'm just gonna keep on trying to work with my people and move my people up. But that doesn't happen.
Right.
Because as soon as your program is over, you're losing people.
Right. Right.
Because you can't sustain every aspect of your program. So what I'm talking about is investing millions. I don't want to shut people up. I really want real change. I want to invest millions of dollars into grassroots organizations so that they can actually help lift people up, that they have the money to sustain and grow, but lift people up, because many of these programs are needed.
Right.
Whether they were bought before, I want them to thrive now.
Right.
I don't care. I'm not mad at the organizations. I'm mad at the systems,
Mhm.
because these systems pitted us against each other and bought you and drove you in a whole new direction where you're not even fighting.
And you talk
The
about
same
organizations just all over California
Yeah.
and all over the nation for them. I mean, there's
All
probably
over.
tons of organizations.
You're
that
not
get
fighting
that
like
kind
you
of
fight
money.
no more. I mean,
Okay.
I was my whole after ACLU, because they're not one of them, but after ACLU did that whole I forgot what it was called, data driven.
Mhm.
And they was talking about 219% for Black people are stopped at a rate higher than 219%
I believe it.
than whites.
Mhm.
And then they don't even
And
find
you
anything.
want to go sit down with somebody and talk to them? I'm saying no. Every day they shouldn't be able to move about without seeing a sea of us show up, with non-violent.
Mhm. Mhm.
But we need to make them uncomfortable.
Right.
So uncomfortable, the only thing they think about in their dreams is change.
Right. And let me just say this is that, and you know, actually to respond to it, and because when you talk about millions, the first thing people start thinking, especially those that, you know, really are concerned about their tax dollars, you know, that when they start looking, where you gonna get that from? You know, the million.
That money exists. That money already exists.
Right, I know that. So let me just say this, which you just took words out. We know that there's already money there. We see them sole sourcing millions of dollars at a drop of a hat to folks. We understand that. And that's money is already there. I've seen in cities like Oakland where they have a property tax and they split the money up. They give millions to the police, they give millions to fire, and they give millions to the community, right? Because when you talk about public safety and you're going to address it, it has to be well rounded. And I agree with that. And so, and so that I think that is a good plan. You have other cities that do it. San Jose has their whole city runs a violence prevention program and things like that, and so on. So when you're looking at it, when you say there's money already there, what is your thinking when you talk about these millions that you can invest in the community?
So when we talk, I'm talking about millions. Our current mayor I did a thing on Twitter and on Facebook where it said, for sale, and Mayor Faulconer was holding the for sale sign.
Mhm.
So, because he's for sale,
Mhm.
And the reality is that when you have a no bid, no contract, no scope of work, and you pay somebody $60 million for it,
There it is,
you
right
can't
there.
tell us.
Yeah.
And then you got people like Barbara Bree and
Mhm.
Todd Gloria
Mhm.
talking about the water department, or
Mhm.
really Barbara Bree talking about the water department when they didn't even deal with the water department correctly.
Mhm.
As a city council, as a mayor,
Mhm.
nothing. They
Mhm.
just start firing people.
Mhm.
Those were the people who they got rid of to say, oh, we did something, when you
Right.
really didn't do
You didn't
anything,
address
because
it.
the system that you just paid $60 million still doesn't work in the water department. It still doesn't work.
Wow.
These people have to use paper to do their stuff.
Mhm. Wow.
So it's like, come on, let's be real. We are going to make sure that this government is open and honest and right, that we show the people everything that we're doing. Everything.
So
There's not going to be any more of this corruption.
Mhm.
In the 2019 audit, it says that there were laws that may have been broken. There were policies and procedures that handled his business
Okay, period.
and
Just in
other
general,
people in their
general.
departments.
In general.
So it's like, come on, if the auditor sees it
Mhm.
and nobody is saying anything, it's like, we're not talking about our debt.
Mhm.
How are we $100 million in debt? And you as a city council, you as a mayor are pushing deals that's 30 million and 50 million and 100 million and 900 million, and you ain't even paid off your 100 million.
Exactly. So it's one of the things that you said that is what I think I hear you saying is we don't need to just have it probably. So what you're saying is it probably won't work to just have new people in these offices. We need to actually dismantle the system and start over, because to go in and just fire everybody, it doesn't matter. Like there has to be a when you talked about, so you become the mayor and you get a progressive chief in here. Well, so what if everybody else in line is not? So
let's talk about that, because I become the mayor, we get a chief. We also gonna have to get new policies and procedures that are in place to deal with that culture.
Right.
We also are going to have to audit the officers who are currently there, because we should not have anything called a rogue officer working for law enforcement. Rogue officers are a thing of the past when I become mayor. We are going to have a commission that goes through every officer's jacket and looks at it, and we are going to determine if that officer is fit.
Yeah.
Because we run this city.
Right.
This is our SDPD.
Right.
And we should not have an officer in any department that has done anything as far as sexual in nature. We should not have an officer who has assaulted somebody. That's not okay.
And covered up.
Like if Fisher got 44 months, we got a sheriff, an ex-deputy sheriff who got 44 months for sexually assaulting 16 women. And he was left on duty after the first and the second complaint. We're going to change that policy within SDPD. And we're going to make sure that we have policies that these officers who are left with us know we play no games. I'm not going to, because I'm also talking about increasing wages, having better benefits across public safety, not just for law enforcement, for fire, for lifeguards. And we're going to include community members who they so happily put in their reports to make them look better, that help decrease violence. That's public safety. Yeah. That help get people to services. That's public safety.
What do you mean by that? What just real quick, what do you mean by that?
So we have organizations that help people across the board, organizations that help people, grassroots, nonprofit, large, small, it doesn't matter. They help people access services. Maybe they come from incarcerated groups and they get them the service, and they prevent violence. They prevent any type of trauma. Public safety does not just mean violence. Public safety means you respond into a home to help bring the family together. It could have been an argument. It could have been a flood. It could have been a fire. It could have been somebody passed away. Right? It could be somebody sick, somebody, got a broke leg or something, and you're coming to help. And that shores up fire and EMTs from having to come. We have, those people are going to be under public safety.
The one thing that when you talk about like in the department and holding accountable officers that's in there doing things, you're going to bring a change, because when you bring a change, especially bring a new chief in, and you want to change that police culture, some policies and procedures going to have to change within there. Maybe you have to even change some ordinances within the city council and so on. I think, at least from my experience and research that I've done, I think one of the important things, I'd like to know what your opinion is on this, is that when you talk about bringing change within the police department, like you're talking about doing, you most definitely need an I forget the term they use on this, but I'm going to just say independent overseer of it. Where someone is within
oversight.
Okay.
Yeah. Overseer.
Independent oversight.
We don't do well.
I know what you mean.
Independent oversight of the department. Where someone is within that department and they're overseeing what's happening in there, and from the perspective of if things are going, they're looking at whether or not they're really keeping in step with their policy on changing racial profiling. They're making sure that reports and different things when they come in that they've been followed through and something's being done about it.
Accountability.
Yeah, that's what
You're
she's
talking about
in the department.
accountability.
Yeah,
Not-
she's talking.
at the end of the
But
day,
you need
that's
somebody
what you're saying.
independent within there.
Call it what you want, but you need accountability. Is kind of what I hear you say.
Exactly.
What
Exactly.
So what are you going to do about it?
Well, one of the
what
things
does
that I
look like?
want to do is I want to make sure, and I think
That's a
they
good
did
question.
this in Northern California,
Mm-hmm.
is make sure that every district has their own board that's representative of that district
Mhm.
to talk about police accountability,
Okay.
because it looks different for every district.
Yeah. It does.
And so I want to make sure that they have that, but then we have a commission
Mhm.
who actually is part of those districts.
Mhm.
That is the ones that are making the decisions and looking at the reports and things like that.
In the community.
And that they will be talking to each other. So 9 districts
Mhm.
that'll be talking to a commission,
Mhm.
and that the communities
Mhm.
will actually elect those people
Mhm.
to be on those boards.
Now, in regards to the CRB, because
What's the CRB?
the
Community Review Board.
yeah, community
Because
review board,
some people may not know.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
okay.
community review
And what do they
board,
do?
yeah.
Community review board.
well,
So
They-
the community
I
review
know,
board-
but I'm just some people just like how many. So that's what I mean.
Community
Yeah, 'cause some people
Review
don't know.
Board looks at complaints, and they
So
deal with
community
the
review
firing.
boards for police practices.
Yeah,
so it's a
they
board
look
that,
at police
that,
complaints.
It's supposed to provide oversight of the police
yeah.
department. And what do they do?
They look at complaints, and
Okay.
basically, and then make decisions on whether or not it was sustained, or it was unfounded.
And what happened? And then
and
what
then-
happens once they find that something is? What if they go, "Yep, there was here." What happens?
Yeah, that goes to the chief.
And then what happens?
And the mayor's
then
office.
and the mayor's office, and then the chief. They send out a letter to the person who filed the complaint.
Because she filed a lot.
Yes. Well, I've never. I got letters once I started complaining. I didn't get no letters.
Oh, is that right?
What
So, yeah,
I want to ask. Okay, so and not to
They have
belabor,
no decision making power.
So that's
So
my
it is
point.
a
That's my point.
suggestion.
So
They are
look at-
just suggesting.
That's what I want to know.
That's it.
So they look at
So-
something, they go, "Yeah, we see a problem," and so they give it over to the
They
chief,
work
and the
really
chief goes,
hard.
"Well, you
So
see
these-
that there's a
but-
problem, but I don't."
Yeah, but
And so
these
it's not going
volunteers work really hard to be treated in the manner that they've been treated by the city.
And let me just say this,
And
though.
so that's what I want to say. They don't have authority that makes decisions.
Right.
They have
Yeah, exactly.
they only have suggestive.
And they're
authority.
I guess the measure that they're trying to put on the ballot to change the CRB into a commission and give them independent investigation and independent subpoena power. For me, that's a farce. And people with any kind of intellect and understand politics and understand all this should know that. And I feel like they're trying to pull a wool over the community's eyes. They're trying to play us and make it seem like they're doing something, but they're not doing anything. Because unless, like what you said, if that board, whether it's commission, CRB, or whatever, when you change it, unless they have power and authority to make decisions to fire someone or whatever recommendation they give, and unless you have an independent prosecutor that's going to be able to go in there and prosecute versus not relying on the DA's office because of the relationship that they have there, then it's in vain to go through all of this. And I think when they frame narratives out there to make it seem like they're doing something when they're not really doing it. So when I hear other politicians, whether it's Todd Gloria, Barbara Bria, and so on, there's, I support the initiative, the CRB initiative to change things and so on and so on. That's nothing. So
for me, I kind of feel like the people who put that together have good intentions. I think that the people who put it together have good intentions. But I think that if we look at the sheriff's department, where 22 deaths went without investigations and they have subpoena power, it scares me. It terrifies me that we get subpoena power and we get these we get these complaints.
What did you just say?
Yeah. So the review board on the sheriff's side.
Clerk, that's the clerk.
Clerk, yes.
Same type of oversight.
Same type of oversight.
But for the sheriffs.
But for the sheriffs. Okay. So when cases go longer than a year, they drop off. Okay. Like you can't investigate anymore. And so 22 incarcerated death cases, in custody death cases, went beyond a year.
And they just dropped them off. Didn't say nothing to the
They
family.
could
Didn't
not.
say nothing.
They could not.
You couldn't. It's a
They
law.
couldn't
policy
do it. It's a
that-
policy.
yeah.
It's a law. It's a law. It's not
Yeah,
a policy.
state
And they
law.
can just
So-
they can just keep pushing along. A year ain't really a lot when you got a whole lot of bureaucracy.
But they
going on.
can prolong it for a year. Like,
That's what
you
I'm
know,
saying.
it's
They
not.
can push it down the road.
I have cases that were prolonged, like, and it's like, oh, you know, we haven't forgotten you. Yeah, but it's longer than a year. This should have been 9 months, 6
Mhm.
months, like
Mhm.
at tops.
Mhm.
You know, but they are inundated,
Mhm.
you know, with stuff because they are inundated with internal stuff and external stuff. And so, but for me, it was like death. We just dropping 22 deaths.
But let me just say
Like they
this.
not like you just was
Right.
disrespectful to me. Like I died in your custody.
And
My
still got a
family
lot
has
of them
no
happening right
closure.
now. A lot of deaths
You
right
know,
now.
we are the highest in custody deaths.
My
San
major
Diego,
cities, yeah.
the city that we're talking about is the finest city.
And
The
county,
city that
county,
we're
yeah.
talking about, you know, city and county,
Mhm.
that we're talking about is one of the richest. We got a county that is like hundreds of millions of dollars in surplus.
Yeah, more deaths than LA.
I would not send.
Yeah.
I would not send someone to jail, and that's one of the things that we're gonna have to really talk about as a people. Like, are we sending people who are low-level offenders to a jail they may die in? Because many of those people died.
But
We have people that died this year.
Can I say something real quick about
Mhm.
that? And I have a personal experience with that. A really good friend of mine.
Mhm.
He ended up going to jail quite a bit. I got a call one time from the jail, from a sheriff. And he said, I'm calling you about so-and-so. And he said, man, is it possible for you to, like, do you have anywhere for him to go? Like, if I could house him, I would. He does not need to be here. Like, he needs something consistent. And because he dealt with depression, he absolutely, he had mental health issues, was a wonder. I still have a bag of his clothes from 6 years ago in my garage with his wallet and everything. That's how much I love this brother. I met him in 2005. He was down at the Neil Good Day Center, and he was coming down off of crystal meth. The first day I met him, we went to In-N-Out and got a burger and sat and talked.
Mhm.
And I love that brother to me.
Amen.
The sheriffs called me and said, I would take him to my house if I could. He has so much respect down here in this jail. He's caught up in this system and there's nothing I can do. But I would take him to my house, but they would fire me if they found out that I did this or whatever.
Wow.
I'm not saying that this is not a pat on the back to the sheriffs. What I'm talking about is what happened is shortly after that, about 2 months after that, I got a call from his mama that said, can you go check on my son at the hospital? He hung himself yesterday.
Oh man.
And I went to see him and my boy was intubated and he died.
Wow.
He died.
Wait, was he in jail?
In San Diego County Jail. And the family never got any money. They didn't get nothing. He hung himself.
Man.
He hung himself, and this is so deep. So if I could, I just want to give a brief over, just 30 seconds. In 1985, him and 6 other dudes, they jailhoused a child molester. And you know what that means. What happens to everybody. They jailhoused him. I saw the paperwork. He didn't make it up. I saw the paper. I saw what he was charged with.
Mm-hmm.
They shaved his head and they did all, I mean, they treated him bad because you shouldn't do that stuff to kids.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that they did that to pressed charges on him. So he had to then register as a sex offender. All of them did. He sued. So when he got out 15 years later in 2000, he had to register. From 2000 to 2014 or 2013, he had to register. He didn't have all the stipulations like 1,000 feet from the school. It was none of that. Like he wasn't a predator.
Mm-hmm.
There was none of that. Like he was just none of that. And because of his gang affiliation in prison, he was always sent to the SHU. He had an indeterminate SHU terms because he was part of the BGF. So he had an indeterminate SHU. In jail, same thing. Green band, away from everybody else. Had nothing to do with the sex registration at all. But it was just something, it was a formality of what happened in jail. Brand new thing that happened. And he was like, dude, it tripped everybody out. And it scarred him mentally. And because he would fail to register and all these things, he finally said, man, let me get my life right or whatever. He gets his life right. They put him in this program. And the program started showing him these pictures and asking him, did he like kids? And he called me one night and he was screaming, like, what in the F are these people trying to do to me? Like, what do they think I am? And so it was over and over and over, and they wouldn't get him the resources. And he said he just couldn't take it no more. He killed himself. He hung himself. And those are the kinds of things I think when a person is able to personalize. See, we can talk theory, we can talk all the data, but the truth is, my life is scarred. I got a friend that hung himself from the sprinkler, and they left it. And I'm not blaming. Well, I blame the sheriffs because they left him by himself in a cell where they shouldn't have done that.
Or
he had a chair. He had a chair in the cell, and you ain't supposed to have none of that stuff. And he hung himself with the sheet. And it's like, there are families, and that was just a good friend of mine. But there are families, there are mothers and fathers that are losing sons because we playing around, and daughters. I'm sorry, sons and daughters, because we playing around with numbers. We're playing around with data, and we're acting like it don't matter.
But we're not just playing around with data. We're playing around with money. We're playing around with resources.
All of it.
You know, they are investing more mental health dollars in jails here in San Diego than they are in the communities. And it wasn't until that was brought out that they then started having, let's meet in the community and talk about mental health. And let's start, putting out, RFQs and RSFQs, which is, for people to send in proposals and things like that. But they have been heavily investing in the jails prior to that, while they were in a surplus. And they were even told they were hoarding money, mental health dollars. And so, this is just a fact.
So, but let me
invested in that.
Let me go back, to the
CRB. Let me read a few comments once you're done with it.
Let me just go back to the CRB and say, because and I'm not taking this from you, but I am just like from my own experience, just want to share with you, the folks that put together that CRB proposal. I talked with somebody from there before they implemented stuff, and I told them about having the decision to fire folks. Wasn't asked for a lot. And so, and that they're afraid that they will not be able to get it through because the Police Officer Association will fight against it, and others, and shake up the city council on this. And this is a problem that we have because the police officers, they don't have the courage, and the Police Officer Association will still fight. Something that I believe you should go for whether you get it or not. This CRB has been in place since the 80s, so over about 30 years, right? And you talking about making some minimal changes that ain't going to affect anything. If you're going to do something, let's do something radical. That's why I believe. Don't call yourself a progressive. I don't claim to be a progressive, but I look at progressives and I see some of the things they do, and I'm like, wow, okay, we need that here in San Diego. But these folks here are really conservative. They're more conservative, moderate than they are progressive, and they want to claim that progressive label, but they're not really willing to really fight to turn the system upside down. Then they come and make you think that they're doing something and they're not doing anything. And that's the problem that I have.
But I think that in their eyes, they believe that they are doing something. And so I think it's mindsets. And Bishop, that this goes way back, that people have a mindset that what their fight and their cause is right. And they keep it. And there's some are stubborn with it. That this is what we need. And once we get this, we can go after this. And once we get that, we can go after that.
I'll be dead. I only have a short time left. You know what I mean?
So
if I was 20 years old, I could fight 50 more years.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But Bishop Coretta Scott King said it best. She said, in every generation, we're going to have to fight for our rights.
That's right.
Fight for justice. We're going to have to fight for
so I'm fighting mine right now.
But you did, and you have, and you are fighting. You are fighting for your peace in your generation, in your sector, and they're fighting for theirs. And I think that fight together, because your children and my children are going to have to fight the next step in their generation, and their children and our children are going to have to fight the next step. They're not going to give us everything we need. We are going to have to be courageous to take it. We're going to have to vote courageous. We're going to have to get in office and be courageous. We're going to have to do things and we're going to have to stand on that.
Right.
And not waver. Yeah. I mean, I have been in this fight a short time, but Bishop Bowser, it has been the hardest of my life. I didn't know if I could do it, and different things. And like I was telling Jason, there are times when I was so tired and I would hear a voice that said rest, and I would rest. And then there's a time where it say, you know what, get up, go here. You need to go here. And I would go there and I would get 15 pages of signatures. Like, because I have to listen. And you know, people think different things. It's an inner voice, it's faith, it's God. I have a strong faith. You know, whether I go to church or not go to church, people don't know what my faith is and what my relationship is with God. It's mine. Just like yours is yours and yours is yours. He gonna talk to each of us differently. He gonna work through each of us differently.
You know, my thing, you know, is you know, when you talk about the vote, you're trying to get these signatures and things like that, and get on the ballot. Now you're on the ballot. You get to run for office, and you want the votes and things like that. But you know, one of the things that I'm seeing quite often, in when you're trying to address issues, especially in the Black community, is getting Black people involved, right? Not only involved, but really to understand that, you know, when you vote for these other folks, you just continue to perpetuate the same old thing that Malcolm X talked about, right? You know, you come and have coffee with you, you come out and tell everybody the man is all right because you had coffee with him, or the woman's all right because you had coffee with them, and so on. But they continue to perpetuate the same old systemic oppression that's been happening for years and so on. Ain't nothing changed since the 60s to now. It's the same old thing that's going on. And you know, my thing is that, and I want to know, like, how is the Black community treating you in a sense of running for office and looking for these votes, you know, this support? Because we always talk about Black and all that other kind of stuff. But then when it comes to it, you know, people, you know, they have their opinion about different things, and everybody have an independent right to make a decision as to what they want to do. But don't come talking to me about Blackness if you're not going to support it and help it and get under there to make things happen the way they need to happen in order to have that Black person in office like we want them in office.
I think that the worst place where I was treated the worst was the VFW on 47th Street. Their commander treated me horribly.
Was a lot of people there? Just him?
Oh, it was a lot of people there.
Oh, for real?
One sister had to walk up to me and ask me, was I okay?
What was that? Give us a little background on that.
So, you know, my a good friend of mine, I call her my sister. She wanted to go to the VFW to meet a friend, and you know, I said, I'll go with you. I'll get, you know, I can get some signatures and, you know, meet people and talk to them. And so I did, and a few people were very, you know, friendly, and but I didn't know a lot about the VFW because
who does? Because no, seriously, who does?
They have parties there.
Well, you know, this commander was very upset and wanted to make sure that people knew that it wasn't just a club. Things and I didn't know that all the stuff that they did, and I said, but I would love to know. Would you tell me? And I kid you not, this commander talked about Barbara Bree like she was the white savior. You know, Barbara Bree came here by herself, and she, you know, and she was by herself, and she's gonna, you know, she helps with this and she helps with this, and then she just kept talking about how she came by herself. You don't know what we do. You don't know we give out turkeys, and you know, we have a toy drive, and he started talking about they wanted to build, and they're going to be building a building, but they handed over the deed to the developer. And I said, why would you hand over a deed to the developer? That doesn't make sense. Like, you know, what has the developer done? He said, well, they've been telling us for 2 years they had to push back building because, you know, they couldn't get the iron, and then they wanted to increase the amount of money. And so I said, well, it sounds like they've violated your contract. You know, get your deed back, because you could build a building without giving over your deed to a developer. That makes it their property.
And was the developer Black?
You know, no. So, you know, and I don't even know the developer could have a good heart or whatever it is. But when we give over our land, that has
very little that you have.
You know, that has been a downfall for us. And so it's like, if you have an out to get out of that, to possibly get someone else, you know, who could do something different, and you still maintain that this is your property and you own it, you know, but he was very, I mean, he was just like, you know, I asked him, I said, could you, you know, hey, let me learn all the stuff you do. Could you send it to me? I would love to read it. I've been reading a lot about a lot of
He's
different
more on
things.
Barbara Breed.
And he said, why would I do that for you? And I was like, he took me back, like, because I said, whoa, you know, and I said, you know, just paused and said, well, because I want to know. I really want to know. I'm here because I want to know, you know. Now, he doesn't even to this time, even today, he didn't want to know nothing about me. And so what was hurtful is that I'm an ex-military spouse.
Right.
And when I needed someone, the VFW is not where I went. Because I didn't know about it. And it didn't reach out to me. And I was in that community. But when I needed help, I couldn't even go to the naval base. I had to go to the Marine base. And they secured me and my family.
And what about the Black community at large?
I mean, the Black community at large, I think is divided into like multi-sectors. Okay. Because you got Blacks that are supporting Todd. You have Blacks that are supporting Barbara. You have Blacks that are supporting myself. You may even have some Blacks, Republicans that are supporting Scott Sherman. Now that he jumped in the race. Right. I really think he only jumped in the race to sway votes from Barbara Breed to help Todd. Because that's the game that play. Well, that's the game that's being played. You know, Mark Kersey would have jumped in the race to sway votes from Barbara Breed to help Todd. And, you know, there was a rumor going around that Todd had talked to Mark Kersey about doing that. You know, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But this game is not you know, a respectful game.
Politics.
You know, and I'm going to maintain my respectfulness. I'm not doing anything, you know, that's dirty to either of the politicians. We're going to talk about truth and the reality, because people and organizations are going to either have to be real about what they say, or they're going to have to change it.
So what would you say to white voters that may be looking at you and say, that Black woman, please, and they're maybe looking at voting for Barbara Breed or Tagler? What would you say to those Black voters, or even some that's on the fence?
Yeah, I would.
Black voters or white
voters? Okay, white voters, because she's gonna need white voters
first.
Yeah. So for white voters, I think, you know, just look at where you are today. People who say they're progressive, because those are the people. I'm talking to everyone, because as a mayor, we are nonpartisan and we have to represent everyone. Are these people representing you? Have they represented you? Because one thing that Todd is very big at saying is, you can see who I am by what I've done. And the same goes for all of us. You can see who we are by what we've done, and how have those people represented you, whatever walk of life you're in, whatever your journey is. I plan to represent everyone. My prioritization is going to be for those people that were on the bottom, those people that I believe are a part of our foundation. The most disenfranchised we have, because, and I was telling a news reporter, I said, look, you have people that have money, to have the resources, and they have this attitude and aura about them of, I'm tired of my money helping these people. And all I'm saying is that if we help these people and lift them up and out of their conditions, it helps everyone. Because the more people that we have working, the more people that we have healthy, the more people that we have getting resources, moving themselves up and becoming, you know, people who can maintain their lives, people who are working, who are thriving, who are spending in the city. It helps everybody in that city.
Can I ask you this? Because and to add to Bishop's question is, so along with what would you say to, and this is just generally speaking, right? People in general who are gonna probably be, or who at this particular time are probably more apt to be hesitant for whatever reason to vote for someone who doesn't have what they would consider a long-term, who hasn't been a career politician, who hasn't been involved in what they would consider politics. What I want you to speak to, what I think would be neat or to talk about is, do you think that, or I think, and what do you think, that I think most people are used to voting people in to abdicate all of our personal responsibility to give to the one person here. And that's how you end up having 2 or 3 people going into a room making decisions about an entire, you know what I mean? And so, which is not supposed to be the case. At every level of government, there is a person that represents people. How do you, as a mayor, as a leader, as somebody, like, what do you say to those people who might be thinking that way, who don't understand what it means for the people, for us to actually be a government for the people, by the people, and of the people?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Because I think that that's important. What is your opinion of that? How are you going to stop that small group to answer for everybody?
So definitely, I think that people need to understand that in order for us to change, we are going to have to vote courageously. Okay. And not just vote for one person, right? We're going to have to vote courageously on every level of government, not just me. We're going to have to vote courageously on every level of government, because those government levels are going to have to start working together. When I'm mayor, we are not going to be asking organizations to have collaborations while the city, the county, the state, the federal, while we're just separated. That makes no sense to me. We are all going to have to be working together. So you're going to have to put people in office that are, I don't like the label progressive, people who are going to do the right thing. Okay. That's what progressive is. Somebody who is going to be just, who is going to be open, who is going to be transparent, who is going to build equity, who is going to make sure communities and everyone in them thrive with resources, investment, everything that they need.
How do you plan on doing that as mayor?
Let me tackle your first question. Okay. Because everything will have to be done in phases, and we have to look at community differently, right? We have to look at the communities who've had the least. That's our foundation, right? And when we have cracked foundations, right, then we have to invest in shoring them up so they're solid, so that we can build, right? And that we build together. And so for us in government, making sure that people understand, when you invest in voting and you vote courageously and you get a person in office, that means they're going to bring you in. We're about making sure that people can come to government meetings. MTS provides free transportation. We have free transportation. We have meetings out in the community so that people understand it. We have a department that specializes in canvassing, getting information out to the community, so that we're not just expecting people who don't have internet to go on the internet. We're going to make sure that everything that people need is in their
and it's already a information. It's already there.
There's a system already. We don't have to create it. It's not utilized. It's not invested in. They don't have a canvassing team, so to speak. But we're going to create that, what that looks like, because we shouldn't just be canvassing and talking about this great stuff we're going to do when we were running. Many of the people that are running today, that are politicians and that has been their career, they're not out getting out, meeting, knocking on doors every day or every week or once a month while they're politicians. They're tucked away. I'm having meetings out in the park. I'm going to have meetings wherever. You're not just going to meet me at city council. I'm going to meet you where you're at. I'm going to come to you. I want to be a mayor and show other mayors. There are other mayors that meet people where they are. I want to always remember why I'm in this seat. Getting out, but making sure that the different levels connect so people can step up, step in, changing city employment, making sure that we have a city council that will help to increase wages. How is it that as the next mayor is going to jump from 100 and something thousand to 200,000 when we go into office. The city council is going to jump from 75,000 to 125,000. Now, mind you, they haven't had raises for a while, but the raises that they gave out to the city employees, they took back when they asked them to, I'm going to give you a 5% raise, but you got to invest 5% into your retirement.
Let me ask you two questions.
So we're not doing that anymore.
But can you just finish? I want you to talk about why is it important for people to be involved, to get rid of that idea that someone that doesn't have a million years worth of political pandering and all that isn't suited for an office like that. Can you talk to people who can you talk to that?
But I want to, I can talk to that too. And I want to get to that is because I want to get to that too. Well, let me just talk to it. Everybody, it was their first time. So we go back to when it was their first time. People they've had their first. Todd Gloria, when he first won, it was his first time in politics. It was his first time as a politician. So everybody has a first time. If we keep electing politicians who have been there and have not done anything, Todd Gloria talks a lot about he's indigenous, he's Latino, he's Filipino, he's all these things. What has he done for those groups?
Or what has
I don't want to honor indigenous people with my mouth. I want to honor them and make sure that they have employment. I want to honor them and make sure that they have land. I want to honor them and make sure that they have the services and supports that they need. That's how I honor those people. From the land that was stolen from them, where they were divided through Mexico and San Diego. So they have people that are on both sides, but can't even connect because we got a border. That's how I want to honor them. I want to honor them by making sure that they thrive. Like I want to do with Black people and Latino people and Asian Pacific Islanders, those people who are homeless and poor, disabled. That's what I want to do. Not I honor you with words. I'm action oriented. And so my actions have shown that when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I want to make sure that we have ownership. I want to make sure that grassroots organizations are thriving, that we are not closing their doors. I want to make sure that the disabled are welcomed in this city. I want to make sure that we regulate things besides just giving out to our giving things away. Like, hey, go ahead. You can have bikes everywhere. You can have scooters everywhere. No, we need to regulate that. I want to make sure that there's justice and equity in every system.
But the thing is, it's like Jason was saying is, but when you look at the politicians you're going up against, right? Mm-hmm. And you talk about the experiences of a lot of people, well, I got experience this, experience that. You're newly coming into politics, mm-hmm. right? And so what difference do you make? I like some of the things you talk about, but speaking to the general population mm-hmm. in regards to who you're running against and them looking at them and saying, oh, maybe these guys got more experience and she probably don't even know what's so different about you and why you should be elected mayor versus these other folks that they're looking at?
The difference for me is that I have the same experience that they have as far as making budgets, doing the things as far as the city. I know how to make budgets, real budgets, not fuzzy ones. I know how I know how to create policies and procedures because I've done that, mm-hmm. In nonprofit organizations. Mm-hmm. I know how to create programs. And I don't want programs. I want things that are going to sustain. Mm-hmm. Like I want things that are going to be policy driven. Mm-hmm. So we're not about programs. We're about policy. Mm-hmm. These changes are going to stick. Mm-hmm. They're not just going to be programs. They're going to become a part of the policy of the city. They're going to become a part of the budget. Mm-hmm. They're going to be line items. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be we just giving you 50,000. Run with it. Mm-hmm. No, we are going to make sure that these programs are attached to the city because we believe in them. We are invested in this city. We want people to thrive. Mm-hmm. What can I do? I can do all the things that I've been doing where the mayor is saying we've reduced violence, mm-hmm. where with HHSA, we've increased people using their services, right? Mm-hmm. Those people who would have fallen through the cracks, we shored it up because we made sure once they touch us, they never have to come back, mm-hmm. right? They get what they need. Mm-hmm. So those things, we know how to make a city function and work. Mm-hmm. We have to be in there. So people will have to vote courageously, because I'm not playing the game of, oh, I've done this and I've done that. Barbara Bree has had $1 million business, but she didn't understand when the mayor was playing her with all the paperwork he sent her when he spent $300 million on land for his friends. Barbara Bree is the one who said yes to the vehicle ordinance. And now it's like, I really didn't know that it was going to do all these devastating things, but you do your research and your homework. You talk about that. You boast about that. How come in every instance you didn't do what you say you do?
You think they're bought, or do you think that?
I don't think that they're bought. I think that if it doesn't impact them, they're not worried about it. Like Todd Gloria talks about LGBTQIA, but yet Black LGBTQIA is not mentioned. The center who is kind of the epicenter of LGBTQ, where people can go and get amazing services, they had the first Black meeting. We 2019, this is 2019. There are even people who are not Black LGBTQ who are upset with Todd Gloria because he made promises he didn't keep. If people are tired of status quo and politicians that make promises and will buy them and give them money and help them become rich, and all that stuff, I'm not the one. Because I am for the people. I want to make sure that people thrive, everyone, not just the rich, not just the developers, not the unions, like everyone. I'm not going to do deals that don't make sense. And so if those people want to support and stand by Todd Gloria's and Barbara Bree's, then that's where they need to stand. Because when you stand with me, we're going to do it right. We're going to make sure that everybody thrives in one of the richest cities in the nation. There is no way we should have homelessness when we just had a city that has no homelessness. We are one of the richest. We got a county that has a surplus. We can't come together and ensure that people in a housing first. Our city says housing first. The city that has no homelessness is using a housing first model, the real one. And they have no homelessness. And we have homelessness. You mean to tell me we can't get people who are homeless into permanent housing? Why can't we?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that I hear you saying that I think is good, and it's not only one, but just one of the overall themes of what I hear from you that I think is different than probably any leader that we typically hear that isn't truly progressive, right? It's one thing to say you're progressive, and we see that all the time, right? And it doesn't even pay. It, who cares if you're the first Black something if you ain't gonna make a difference? It don't matter. Like the fact that it's 2019 and we're still saying first Black, whatever, that's stupid. Like it just makes no sense. So I'm not as concerned about you being the first Black woman mayor. Like, I mean, that's beautiful. But if whoever's the first Black really doesn't have an idea of how to create real equity in the particular area that they have influence, it really doesn't matter, and it's a detriment. And I don't want to get into the politics.
And I want to also just touch base that we understand that as mayor, I'm a representative of the whole.
That's what I was going to say. I'm not saying, and that's why I said you have to be able to create real true equity for whatever you have influence over. And so because you will be the mayor of the city of San Diego, you have responsibility for the city of San Diego. But here's what I'm saying though, when you start talking about equity, and equity is not give me half your money or whatever. Equity is give me the same resources that everybody else has, and there's systems that create oppression.
Equity is not that either. Equity is give me the resources that you never gave me. So it may be even more than half. Right?
Yes.
So if D4 has gone without resources for 50 or 100 years,
right,
and now I'm giving you half, that's still not enough.
So and I guess the point I was trying to make, and that's a great way to describe it, because like ultimately what it is that we need to have a playing field where the things that people are due, they should have.
Exactly.
There are things that people are paying taxes for that they should have.
Mm-hmm.
Streets in La Jolla don't look like the streets in D4 or anywhere
or
else,
D8
right?
or D9.
Right. And so, and I want to say shout out to Councilmember Montgomery.
Oh, yes.
One thing, and because she has shown absolute courage.
Beyond courage.
Listen. So,
but she cannot be by herself. She cannot be by herself. So when I say we have to vote a city council in that is going to work together for absolute change, that is courageous as Monica Montgomery.
And that woman, I was talking about this last night, that she came in and addressed the very first thing. She addressed the hardest thing, which was police oversight, police accountability. She took that on day one. She didn't wait and go, well, let me. No, she did, and she has been able to have those conversations. Mm-hmm. And you're right. And this is the thing that I think we have to be careful for. This is the mistake we made when Obama got into office. And when you talk about Black leadership not really having an effect on the Black community, like the Black community didn't benefit from Obama being in office the way that we say, oh, we got representation and we have pride. Well, there's only been 45 presidents in the United States since we've been a country. So chances of your little son that thinks he's gonna, just like our little sons that think they're gonna make it to the NFL or whatever, that's negative, because of the thousands of athletes that go out every year for the NFL, there's only 1% of them that actually make it. So like representation doesn't matter. We don't need that anymore. The country doesn't need any more symbolic Black statues that we can put up on the wall anymore. We need real courageous leaders, and the community needs to get behind these courageous folks, so that when they make these decisions, that the community is able to show up. In all communities from all different council districts need to show up. The mayor, your job is going to be to show up for all different council districts, to bring some kind of synergy back. And like you said, and I love how you said, people in general who have been the least served are the ones who are going to need the most attention regularly. In any system that you have, your weakest link is the one that's going to need the most attention.
If you indeed want them to thrive and become people in an economy that are thriving, and you want them to be healthy, to decrease the amount of funding that has to go towards their health, those things. And those are the things I'm thinking about. And it's so many levels to it, because if we have healthy people, we're decreasing. We talked about violence. Look, this is over $250 billion, spending when it comes to violence.
And if you save lives, you're saving millions.
You're saving
for every life.
And if you don't incarcerate, you're
saving millions.
If you don't have to pay for police officers to do the bad stuff that they're doing,
you save millions.
When the police self-insures and police go out and get sued, all those investigations cost the taxpayers money. So every time you allow a police officer to kill someone with no kind of real oversight, the taxpayers have to pay for that.
Yes, indeed. and then we could talk about education as well, because education leads to a lot of this, right? The lack of it. And we're going to have to change some of that north of 8 and south of 8, because it's failing our Black kids at an alarming rate when you look at Black Minds Matter. And so we're going to have to deal with that, because San Diego Unified School District, as Professor Luke said, it looks like a good district, but it's just not a good district for Black children. And we got to talk about how our kids are being failed in one of the largest school districts, in one of the finest and greatest cities, that has a lot of money. Where it should not be happening.
My thing is that, and I probably stand, at all with you too, a difference with you too.
At odds?
At odds,
okay.
But I don't think there's.
But my thing is that when you pushing policy and speaking out about policy, I'm listening to the words that you say. I'm listening to the language in these policies. And I have not seen anything from the city council, anything from the PSLN that have come out supporting the CRB. Like I told you, that's a farce because it is not actually pushing something that's going to bring real change into our community to empower the community through a CRB or commission or whatever. And until I see that, we have a lame duck council. One thing, the center, what is it called? I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure I say it right. Center for Policing. Center for Policing. They're supposed to do the audit for SDPD.
Yeah.
And they came in there. I don't trust that. And I tell you why, because when the DA's office came out with their report, 25-year report on police shootings, and they said, oh, white people get shot the most. Of course, the truth, as you dig into that data, the truth is there, but you have to dig into it because it's covered up, right? And so when you dig into it, you find out, no, Black people are 7 times more likely to be shot by police versus white person. And they can do the same thing with the Center for Policing. When they come out the report, they can cover up what the real truth is. We already know what the real truth is in racial profiling. We already know what the real truth is in arrests, because SANDAG has sent out a report all the time. Yeah. And we know that a white person is probably like 30 white people are arrested per 1,000, and a Black person 120 something, 21 per 1,000. See what I'm saying? So there's a big difference. We know clearly when we look at the jails and look at the data in there that Black people are overrepresented there. In prison, the same thing. So when you talk about Nislight, Chief Nislight, when he was like campaigning for that position, and even though he had to be hired, he was campaigning for it. He acknowledged, he said, oh, yes, we got to address racial profile. Then when he got in the office, he said, oh, we're going to have to get another report. We have to get a better report than that.
But that's been their way, Bishop.
So what is your opinion on that in the sense of this audit report that they're talking about coming out? And as mayor, would you allow it to go this way, or what would you have done different?
Yeah, no, we would have gone with an independent, somebody that was independent, where police would not have been involved. Because I think that what researchers believe is that the less involvement or oversight from people that they're doing their research on, the clearer and the most transparent it is. So the most real it is.
Right.
And I think that this police department has shown us that they are retaliatory. I think this police department has shown us that they are overseers. When it comes to data, we can look at San Diego State University, where they were told not to put stuff into their research that they did. That came out. I just honestly, the trust is definitely broken within SDPD, and it has been to a level of where we have to make the corrections that are needed. And those corrections are going to be that we really bring in community so that they can see the changes that are going to be made. And when we talk about changes, it's not just about firing Chief Nislight because we don't get along. It's about firing Chief Nislight because he has not been transparent and honest. And because he has been biased. And so for me, bias is racist. And so he holds some racism that he doesn't even acknowledge in his bias. And so for me, I think that, it's someone who can acknowledge the wrongs of their department is not someone who should be in that department.
And let me just interject right there with this, because when Zimmerman was there and when the racial profiling report with SDSU came out, she was told by the city attorney not to acknowledge, which you could apologize if you wanted to, but not to acknowledge that that racial profiling exists.
Well, I think that's again, it all comes back to what you said originally, which I really love about how you are as a person, what I've seen in you since I've known you from day one. I know this for a fact. The day that I met you, like, you are really about helping the people.
Yeah.
You have helped me so much in my career. You taught me about how to write reports, and I have to write reports to justify my money and all the things that I use at my job and stuff. It's a fact. You're very resourceful. You do very, very well at creating relationships across the spectrum. One of the things that I've told you several times is I love the way that you are able to separate your feelings from the necessary relationships that you need to have.
And that used to get on my nerves sometimes, because sometimes I want her to like, Tasha, why are you doing that? And she's like, "What we got?"
But I think that's important, and we're gonna have to close. We're gonna have to close close the video. But I think it's important to end on some of those things, because if somebody catches this and this is the only part that they see, I want people to see, like, our show, the Bishop and I, we focus on the Black issues in the Black community from our perspective.
Right.
You came into the show or whatever to talk, and so we steered you in a direction and talk about stuff that is important to us. We understand. I think I can speak for that you don't speak only for the Black community.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that that's important. I think you speak for anybody that's disenfranchised. But what's important that people need to know, if they don't catch anything else, from my perspective, is that you know how to sit down at the table with a whole bunch of people that you don't get along with in your personal life.
Oh yeah.
And be able to have a professional relationship to do what's best for the people.
Yeah.
And I say that because when you go into situations where someone has been murdered or traumatized, you sit down with the family of the victim and the family of the perpetrator, and you make sure that they both have resources. It's not your job to bring them together. I'm not saying that has never happened under your watch. But what I'm saying is, you don't have a bias towards one person or another. Right. You have demonstrated that, and I've been frustrated with you too. Like Bishop Bowser said, like, how in the world are you letting these people? You know these people don't like you, and you're still going in there and doing what you're doing. But I think
and it's the same with police. On one side, I'm protecting and supporting the community. On the other side, I have trainings. Like we had community engagement bus tours and things to help bridge the gap with police and the community. And and then we had people that would call when they would get stopped by police or I would stop. And so and you started seeing different levels. There was an increase in complaints that I had. And so, there are times where you have to have dual roles, and unfortunately, we have a police department. Well, not all the police, but we have officers that don't. You have officers that don't understand that, and feel like it's accountability is the enemy. And I say accountability is not the enemy.
That all the time. As
accountability is not the enemy. And everybody should want it because it makes us better as human beings. It makes us brighter as a city. And so we have to have that stuff. One of the things that I do and we did not touch on is that people need to understand that.
And we had an hour and 36 minutes.
I know,
and I am.
Everybody looks at me.
You've been merciful today.
And the first thing they see is a Black woman. I'm a mother. Yes. I'm a woman. I'm Black. And I'm proud, right? And I love my Black community, but I love human beings as well. I don't care who you are.
That's what I say. You're a human.
And one of the things that we have to understand as America is that Americans, when America is kind of a country where everyone who came here that wasn't already here, is immigrants, is related to immigrants, and then we have the people who came here and kind of took over, colonizers, right? Whenever we talk about change, and whenever we talk about people, because today, I don't know if you guys saw the video of the U.S. Army against the U.S. Navy throwing up, his little gang sign. That's what I call it. White supremacy.
White power.
But
some of them say it's okay.
They have not. That's a lot of terror, a lot of trauma, a lot to our people, right, and to indigenous people and to other people as well. But a lot for us. Our ancestors were enslaved, were traumatized. We were never given the things, and you talked about Obama a little bit. We were never given the things that other people were given, hundreds of millions of dollars to make our way better. And those things are going to need to change in the city of San Diego. San Diego was known as Mississippi of the West, and it was not because we were perfect. It is because our city was racist.
Yeah.
And that racism still exists, and we're going to have to deal with that, and we will deal with that as a mayor, that we deal with the racism that has kept people on the bottom and left some people on the top. with no integration, no community. If we are going to get through this, we're going to get through this together. We're going to have to tackle those uncomfortable things that we've never tackled, and we're going to have to tackle them for real change. And that's what I'm going to bring to the table. And that is a promise that I will make, because we need to have a sea of change, a tsunami of change is what I call it.
That's right.
In this greatest city, with the wealth that we have, not just in money, but in resources and people. All the people, including, those who live in poverty, are somebody who is unique and valuable to our economy, to our city as a whole. They have something to offer, and we need to help find out what that is, and get them on a level where we all thrive. And so that's what I'm about. And
You
that's
kind of
what I'm gonna
remind
do.
me of what I'm seeing at play, and I hope it continues on. I believe it will. Is you remember Oakland? There was the Oakland Raiders when they were a Cinderella team. What's that gentleman, the cornerback, Lester, I think his name was, or something like that.
Lester Hayes.
Yeah,
He's a reporter, Lester Hayes. I don't know. I'm not.
But anyway,
I've never been down.
Anyway, the Oakland Raiders, this team. This is years ago when I used to watch football and stuff. They barely made it into the playoffs, right? They barely made it into the playoffs. And then when they made it into the playoffs, they were barely winning every game, right? To stay alive. And then went into the Super Bowl and made it into the Super Bowl and barely won. But they beat it, and they won and they won and they won. So just keep fighting, because it doesn't matter whether you skirt in or landslide or whatever, you get in there. Because you're coming up against all kind of odds, you're coming up against all kinds of people, all kinds of opinions. There are probably people that didn't even think you would make it as far as getting your name on the ballot, because there are a lot of people that didn't, right? And so that's a big victory. But you celebrate today, but tomorrow's back to work, because you got to really get out there and work and win the city as a whole. And of course, there's things that are important to you, and which people are magnifying that other candidates are not magnifying. It's like police accountability and things like that. But they need to know the whole Tasha, and they need to know the whole Tasha, the candidate Tasha as mayor. They need to know all of your policies and all the things that you're going to bring out there. So I'm hoping and believing that you get that platform that you need to really, so people, the masses, can really hear you and really get an opportunity to get to know you. Because I think what's most important, if they get to know you and see who you are, that you can win their hearts, but they have to get to know you. And so hopefully you'll get that platform where you can reach the city as a whole, these folks that's going to be voting, and get out the vote and so on, so they can really see who you are. You can turn it around. I mean, even though people probably might be pushing back, you can turn this thing around, and when the polls come out, they say Tasha leading.
Here's what I think is
I know you didn't get to. Did anybody have questions that we didn't get to?
He said we had time.
There's no questions, but Nene Torber says and this is kind of goes back to the beginning, but I'll just read them just to acknowledge it. Thanks to everybody that.
Thank you for watching.
Yes.
We went long today.
Yeah.
But we had a candidate on here.
Yeah. So Nene says the Puerto Ricans got racist with our African queen when she won against theirs. Like something that happened here, and so they need to answer to that. She said, Ramo Abdi said, my sister Tasha with a bunch of hearts.
Yes. Love you, Ramo.
Suzanne Forbes, Verling, we have the money. Our organizations are guided away from the money. Funding apartheid is what she called it.
Wow. That's true.
We just took in $6 billion. Board of Supervisors and Department of Corrections has corralled Black San Diego for decades. Facts. Ron Roberts and Bailey made sure all the money did that. City money is a shell game for sure. Then she says, yes, Jason. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that was.
Right.
But thank you to everybody that hung around this whole time. We and to you, Tasha Williamson, my sister, know that you're loved. You are sacred and you are loved. And your campaign means a lot to me. I'm so proud of you for multiple reasons. I've told you this since day one. This is bigger than you winning. This is about your story being written. This is about your book. I don't mean literally. I'm talking about, and even literally, but I'm talking about the book of your life. That is a story of all the things that have happened to you and things that you've done in the midst of what you faced. You are extremely strong. You are extremely courageous. You're extremely loving. You're tested. You're battle tested. You've been true, and we love you. Super appreciate you. And looking forward to people being courageous. And I just want to say to anybody else that might hear this, one of the things we need to do with the resources is people need to use their resources to, because it's impossible for you. No one can create a team big enough to hit all of San Diego. It's big. What people are going to have to do is start using their resources and the people that they know to be able to get the message out. So what I want to stop seeing is people talking about them being courageous, but not opening up doors and creating opportunities. If you have the ability to do so, to be able to get you in front of people, to be able to start talking to people and swaying votes. We need to stop. Somebody said the other day that we don't need any more allies. This was said last night. We don't need allies. If you're Caucasian and you watching this or saw it, we don't need you as an ally. We need co-conspirators. We need people that are going to get out there and actually do something. We got enough allies. We are over allied. We don't need people to go, yep, I'm with you. That too. Nope. Get your tail, and I would cuss, but Bishop Bowser's here, and I can't do that. And do that. Sister Nini just says, AMD don't do what Alvarez did, and don't do what Alvarez did. That was the mistake he made, is what, and I'm not 100% sure what Nini meant when she said that, but Nini, that's. Our relationship goes way back. She went to work with my wife and stuff, man. Beautiful. Love me some Nini.
I love Nini too.
So, but thank you for being here, Tasha. We love you. So proud of you. Can't wait to see what happens next. San Diego, support some real progression. Don't support Tasha because she's Black. Support her because she's courageous. Support her because she's tested. Support her because she will support you. Support her because we really need some real change in San Diego. And if you don't, you're going to get the same thing that you always got. And guess what? No one cares. So if you don't have courage, then you're going to get exactly what you got coming. So we love you. And thanks for being here, Bishop. Thanks for taking like the lead in this discussion tonight. This is like absolutely your wheelhouse. And, you know what I'm saying? And it was just cool to be able to kick back and just so thank you for that. And but we love you all. If no one told you that they love you today,
we love you.
Love you.
Yes.
And
yes.
you guys
and you are valuable.
Much love to you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So have a great night.
Night.
Don't cuss until I cancel this video.
Nobody's cussing. You're so funny.
That's funny to see how we ended.